I never imagined betrayal could come from the person I loved most, my own son. 3 days ago, I repaired the security cameras in my house, thinking it was just for peace of mind. What I discovered instead shattered the very foundation of motherhood. This morning, while pretending to sip my coffee, I opened the surveillance app on my phone. The screen lit up with a crystal-clear image of my living room. And there they were, my son Caleb and his wife Chloe. Not at job interviews. Not running errands. But sitting at my coffee table, rifling through my private documents with the greed of strangers. My heart froze when I heard Chloe's voice. Where's the original deed? Without it, Mr. Evans can't make the forgery believable. My own child. Plotting to steal the home I built with 30 years of labor as a nurse. The house where I raised him after his father left us. The house I once dreamed would be his inheritance. And yet, at that very moment, I realized, this wasn't just about property. It was about my dignity. My life. And I knew. The war had just begun. The first seconds I watched them through that tiny glowing screen, I felt disbelief. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe Caleb and Chloe were simply organizing my papers to help me. But then I heard their voices, sharp, cold, calculating. It has to be here, Caleb muttered, rifling through drawers I always kept locked. Mom is meticulous about these things. She keeps everything. The word meticulous struck me like a curse. A quality he once admired in me was now the very tool he used to betray me. Then Chloe's voice. Calm, poised, but venomous. Once we have the deed in our names, we can sell the house. She can live in a one-bedroom apartment for her final years. Final years. They were speaking of me as if I were already gone. I pressed my hand against my chest as tears burned behind my eyes. 30 years of sacrifice. Every night shift I worked as a nurse. Every lonely dinner so Caleb could finish college, every smile I forced when I could barely stand from exhaustion, all of it was being twisted into a weapon against me. I thought of Caleb as a little boy, crying in the middle of the night, clutching me after nightmares. I gave up everything for him. Love. Marriage. A second chance at happiness. I chose him. And now he chose greed. But even in the raw wound of betrayal, something else stirred within me, a dangerous calm. Because while they thought I was weak, while they thought my mind was slipping with age, I had something they didn't know. Every word, every plan, every cruel whisper about my final years was being recorded. And I wasn't just a helpless old woman anymore. I was a witness. A hunter waiting in silence while the prey revealed their own traps. They wanted my house. They wanted my sanity. But they had no idea I was about to turn their entire plan against them. This was no longer about survival. This was about justice. And when justice comes from the heart of a betrayed mother, it's not just cold, it's merciless. 3 days before that horrifying discovery, my life still felt ordinary. Or at least, I forced myself to believe it was. My name is Eleanor Vega. I am 68 years old. For more than 3 decades I worked as a nurse, saving every dollar, sacrificing every piece of myself so I could raise my only son, Caleb, after his father abandoned us when Caleb was just 5. I made a vow back then. I would never remarry, never look for a second chance at love. My life, my body, my energy, everything belonged to my child. I worked double shifts, took night duty, skipped meals, and put my dreams aside, just to make sure Caleb could study, eat well, and one day have the future I never had. That is why, when Caleb and his wife Chloe suggested moving in with me, I didn't resist. They said it was to take care of me. They said I shouldn't live alone at my age. They said they wanted me to feel safe. Their words warmed my heart. At last, I thought, I still had family who cared. I opened my door to them. I opened my heart. I even gave them part of my savings every month. But slowly, something changed. The house didn't feel like mine anymore. Little by little, they took over my decisions. What I should eat, when I could leave the house, how I should use my pension money. At first, I told myself I was simply adjusting, letting them feel useful. But soon I realized, I was losing control of my own life. I've always been careful with important documents. My home's deed, my insurance, my financial records, all carefully locked in my bedroom desk. It's the habit of a nurse who spent decades filing critical reports. But to Caleb and Chloe, my caution was paranoia. At least, that's what they called it. When the security cameras in my house broke down, I felt uneasy, vulnerable. So when I finally called a technician to repair them, I felt relieved. Strangely, I forgot to mention it to Caleb and Chloe. Forgot, or maybe deep down, I didn't want them to know. That tiny forgetfulness became my salvation. That morning, like any other, Caleb told me he was going out to look for work. Chloe smiled sweetly, saying she had errands to run. Alone in the kitchen, I sipped my coffee. Then, suddenly, I remembered the new camera app the technician had installed on my phone. With a simple tap, the screen lit up. And my blood ran cold. There they were, Caleb and Chloe. Not out job hunting, not shopping, but sitting in my living room. My documents were spread out like merchandise at a flea market. Caleb rifled through folders, his face tight with frustration. Chloe, with a calm but ruthless expression, held papers against the sunlight, inspecting them like a predator studying its prey. And then I heard it, the name that had haunted my instincts for months. Mr. Evans. A shady lawyer Caleb once brought around. I never trusted him. And now, my suspicions were confirmed. Evans wasn't just some casual acquaintance. He was their accomplice. Where's the original deed? Chloe's voice was sharp, cold. Mr. Evans can't make the forgery believable without it. My entire body froze. The house, the home I built with 30 years of labor, the home where I raised Caleb alone, the home I dreamed of leaving him one day as an inheritance, was nothing but loot to them. Loot to be stolen while I was still alive. I sat there, shaking, staring at my phone. I wanted to storm into the living room, to scream, to confront them. But another voice whispered inside me. Stay quiet. Watch. Record. Let them expose themselves. And that was the moment I understood. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a war. And I, a 68-year-old woman, had just become a soldier in my own home. The following days turned my home into a battlefield of shadows. By day, I smiled like the same old Eleanor, preparing breakfast, asking about their plans, even laughing when Caleb kissed my forehead before leaving. By night, I became an undercover detective, reviewing every recording, documenting every whispered conspiracy that echoed through the walls of the house I once called a sanctuary. Through my phone, I watched them scheme. Chloe sat on my sofa with her laptop, papers scattered like fallen leaves, while Caleb paced the room nervously. Mr. Evans says he needs the original deed, Chloe read aloud. Without it, the forgery won't pass inspection. What if Mom notices it's missing? Caleb asked, biting his nails, a childhood habit that returned whenever he was anxious. Chloe smirked. She's 68. She hasn't looked at those files in months. We'll borrow it for a few hours and put it back before she realizes. Borrow it. That's what they called stealing. But their cruelty didn't stop there. Their plan grew more sinister, more polished, more professional. On Tuesday morning, Caleb's voice trembled with guilt as he said, I feel like she's watching us. Chloe laughed coldly. Please. Your mother spends her days with soap operas and confusion. She's not watching anyone. Soap operas and confusion. They had turned my age into a weapon. My small memory lapses, my slower recall of names and dates, things normal for someone my age, had been twisted into evidence of decline. They were building a case to make me doubt my own mind. And then came the dagger to my heart. Once we get the house, Chloe whispered, we can put her in a nursing home. Something affordable, but comfortable. With the $150,000 from the sale, we'll invest in our own business and still have enough left over to take care of her. A nursing home. Paid with the money from the house I had built brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice. They weren't just planning to rob me, they were planning to discard me. Still, I stayed silent. When they finally placed the forged documents before me, their manipulation reached its climax. Caleb took my hand, his eyes filled with false tenderness. Mom, it's just paperwork, medical insurance, will updates. Everyone your age has to do this. Just sign here, here, and here. The papers were thick with legal jargon, paragraphs deliberately confusing, filled with words like transfer, assignment of rights, irrevocable power. I pretended to squint, to act slow. I'd like to read everything first, I said softly. Chloe's mask cracked. Eleanor, it's over 20 pages. It would take you days to understand. It's urgent. You should trust us. Trust. The very thing they had already destroyed. Caleb leaned closer. His voice carried an edge I hadn't heard since he was a child throwing tantrums. Mom, please. We trust the lawyer. Just sign the damn papers. The word slammed through me like a gunshot. For months, they had treated me like a fragile old woman. But now, the mask slipped. My loving son had become a stranger. I set the pen down slowly. I'm old, I said firmly, but I'm not an idiot. The room froze. For the first time, I stood my ground. For the first time, they realized I wasn't as easy to manipulate as they thought. That night, from my room, I replayed the recordings again and again. Every word, every threat, every cruel plan. But I knew recordings alone might not save me. They had already begun whispering about my mental decline, planting seeds with neighbors and even with my doctor. The cruelest part was how calm they were about it. Chloe's voice still echoed in my mind. If she won't sign willingly, we'll pressure her another way. Cancel her health insurance. Deny her the car. Stop helping with groceries. 2 weeks, tops, before she breaks. 2 weeks. They gave me an expiration date. But I was no longer the naive mother they thought I was. I had spent my life surviving night shifts in emergency wards, holding the dying, comforting the broken, fighting for people no one else would fight for. And now, I was going to fight for myself. Because the truth is, age doesn't make you weak. Experience makes you dangerous. The silence in the dining room felt heavier than stone. Caleb's outburst still echoed in my ears, his voice, once soft and full of love, now sharp and commanding. Just sign the damn papers. For a long moment, none of us moved. The pen lay between us, a weapon more dangerous than a knife. If I touched it, I'd be handing them my life. If I refused, I risked exposing the game I'd been playing. I let the pen drop onto the table with a quiet clink. Caleb, I whispered, my voice trembling but steady. Why are you yelling at me? He froze, as if realizing he had revealed too much. His hands raked through his hair, searching for an excuse. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm just stressed. The job hunt, the finances. I didn't mean to snap. But I had seen the beast inside him, raw and unmasked. And no apology could hide it again. Chloe's hand slid over his arm, her voice smooth as silk. What Caleb means, Eleanor, is that this is stressful for all of us. That's why it's better to get this over with quickly. Over with. As if signing away my home and my dignity was a minor inconvenience. I rose slowly from the chair, surprising myself with the strength in my tone. I'm not signing anything until I understand exactly what it means. I may be old, but I'm not a fool. For the first time, they looked at me differently, not as a senile burden, but as an obstacle. A living, breathing problem that refused to bend. I tucked the papers into a kitchen drawer, a symbolic gesture of control. Their eyes followed the documents as if I'd just stolen treasure from pirates. Caleb's jaw tightened. Chloe's smile disappeared. That night, I locked myself in my room and reviewed every second of the recording from dinner. The evidence was clear, but something gnawed at me. It wasn't enough to simply prove they wanted my house. They were already preparing a counterattack, turning my vigilance into paranoia, painting me as unstable. And soon enough, they made their move. The next morning, while I pretended to drink tea in the living room, I overheard Caleb on the phone. His voice was low but deliberate. Dr. Ramirez, this is Caleb Vega. I'm very worried about my mother's mental state. Severe paranoia. She thinks we're conspiring to steal her house. She even installed cameras to spy on us. My blood turned to ice. He was rewriting reality, brick by brick, in the eyes of the one doctor who had treated me for years. That night, their kindness became terrifying. Soft voices. Forced smiles. Questions dripping with poison. Mom, have you been sleeping well? No strange dreams? No confusion. Every answer I gave could be twisted. Yes meant paranoia, no meant denial. And then, like wolves circling prey, they dropped the next trap. At breakfast, Caleb smiled as if nothing had happened. Mom, we've scheduled you a checkup with Dr. Ramirez. Just a routine visit. I clenched my mug tighter. I don't need a checkup. I'm perfectly fine. Chloe's voice was syrupy sweet. Of course you feel fine. But at your age, regular checkups are important. You've been so nervous lately. It's best to be sure. My refusal only hardened Caleb's tone. You're going, Mom. It's for your own good. And in his eyes, I saw it. If I refused, they would find another way. A more permanent way. That night, as they whispered in their room, I finally understood. This wasn't just about documents or signatures. It was about erasing me. My voice, my sanity, my existence, until nothing I said could ever be trusted. But they had underestimated one thing. For 35 years, I had fought for others. Patients on their deathbeds, children without hope, families on the edge of despair. And now, for the first time, I was going to fight for myself. The battle lines were drawn. And I was done pretending. By the end of that week, my house no longer felt like a home. It had become a stage, and I was the unwilling actress in a play written by my own son and his wife. They stopped pressuring me openly about the documents. Instead, they shifted tactics, weaving a more insidious trap, the systematic destruction of my sanity. It began with subtle doubts. One morning, my phone disappeared from my nightstand. When I asked, Caleb handed it back with a smile. You dropped it in the hallway, Mom. I plugged it in for you. But when I unlocked it, the camera app, the very app that connected me to my evidence, was gone. Where's the app? I asked, my voice shaking. Caleb looked genuinely confused. What app? The one for the security cameras. The technician installed it last Tuesday. Chloe appeared from the kitchen, concern painted on her face like stage makeup. Eleanor, no technician has been here. There are no cameras. My pulse quickened. Yes, there are. I paid $300 for the repair. They exchanged a look of theatrical pity. Caleb stepped closer, his tone soft, almost patronizing. Mom, $300? Where did you get that number? You must be remembering wrong. I rushed to the living room, desperate to prove them wrong. But when I looked up at the corners where the cameras had been mounted, I froze. They were gone. Not just removed, erased. No wires. No holes. No trace they had ever existed. I felt my knees weaken. Where are the cameras? I screamed, spinning wildly. Mom, Caleb said gently, as if calming a child. There were never cameras. You imagined it. No. I shouted. I saw them. I saw you on them. Chloe's voice was a dagger wrapped in silk. Eleanor, how could we make you see things that never happened? Sometimes our minds play tricks. And with every word, my world tilted further. I fled to my bedroom, searching frantically for the USB drive where I'd saved my recordings. My fingers trembled as I dug through the drawer, until Chloe's voice slid behind me. Are you looking for this? She dangled the drive between two fingers. My heart stopped. I snatched it and plugged it into my laptop. Folder after folder, empty. Completely blank. No, it was here, I whispered. Hours of recordings, your voices, everything. Chloe placed a hand on my shoulder, her voice thick with false pity. Eleanor, this drive is new. It's never been used. She was right. Not a single trace of data. I turned to Caleb, desperate. I heard you. You talked about Mr. Evans. About the $5,000. About putting me in a nursing home. Caleb sighed, his expression calm, rehearsed. Mom, we showed you legal documents. You misunderstood. Mr. Evans is a real lawyer, helping us update paperwork. The money is his fee. Nothing criminal. And the cameras? I cried. What cameras? He replied, his voice patient, soothing, like a doctor to a delirious patient. Piece by piece, they were dismantling my reality, making me doubt my own memory. Was I truly losing my mind? Or had they erased every trace of truth? The cruelty was calculated, precise. Chloe leaned close, her tone soft but sharp enough to cut through bone. Maybe you need help, Eleanor. A professional. Someone to talk to. A psychiatrist. They weren't just trying to steal my house anymore. They wanted to erase my credibility, frame me as a paranoid old woman so that no one would ever believe me. 4 hours that night, I sat alone in my room, my hands trembling, my chest heavy. I stared at the empty USB drive, at the blank corners where cameras had once hung, at my own reflection in the dark window. For the first time, a thought slithered into my mind like poison. What if they're right? What if I imagined it all? But then, at dawn, salvation came in the form of a mistake. Caleb took a call in the kitchen, his voice low but not low enough. Mr. Evans. Yes, I know the old woman is more alert than expected. Yes, Chloe can forge her signature if necessary. Don't worry. She'll sign by Friday. Forge her signature. The words struck me like lightning. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I was right all along. And now I had the one thing stronger than their manipulation. Certainty. By the time Caleb ended his call with Mr. Evans, I knew the truth. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't imagining things. They were planning to forge my signature and sell the house I had built with 30 years of sacrifice. And that meant only one thing. It was time to stop surviving and start fighting. The next morning, while Caleb and Chloe were out, I made my move. With shaking hands, I dialed Dr. Ramirez directly. My voice cracked, but my words were steady. Doctor, my son and his wife are trying to steal my home. They've already erased my evidence and are telling everyone I'm paranoid. Please. I need help. Her pause was long, professional, but beneath it I sensed her humanity. Eleanor, bring me anything you still remember, anything you've heard. I'll see you privately. No Caleb. No Chloe. It was the lifeline I needed. The doctor confirmed what I already suspected. My mind was intact. No dementia. No paranoia. Just a woman fighting for survival. She even gave me contacts, a private investigator, a lawyer specializing in elder protection. Allies. And so, my trap began to take shape. The following days, I played the role of the obedient old woman. I smiled when they spoke of protecting my future. I nodded when they hinted at legal updates. I even pretended to hesitate, as if I might finally give in and sign their fraudulent documents. But secretly, my house was being armed. The private investigator installed hidden microphones in my clothes, microscopic cameras in the dining room and living room. Everything invisible, everything ready to capture the truth. On Tuesday afternoon, I set the stage. The dining table was covered with documents. Their documents. Caleb sat across from me, his voice dripping with false patience. Mom, let's go through these one by one so you understand. This first one simply gives us the authority to manage things if you're unable. I tilted my head, feigning innocence. And who decides when I'm unable? Chloe leaned forward, her smile sharp. If your memory starts failing. Or if you become too tired to manage. Or, I said quietly, if you decide I'm paranoid. The silence that followed was thick, electric. Caleb's jaw clenched. Chloe's smile faltered. For the first time, they realized the mask of the docile mother was gone. I pressed further. This clause, I pointed to a paragraph, gives you the right to sell my house without my consent. Why would you need that? Chloe snapped, her voice sharp. Because it's practical. With the money we can invest, secure our future, and yes, even pay for your care when the time comes. I leaned back, my voice steady. Ah yes, the nursing home. The one you already described as affordable but comfortable, with the $150,000 from this very house. Their faces drained of color. Caleb shot up from his chair, fury flashing in his eyes. Where did you hear that? In your phone call yesterday with Mr. Evans, I replied coldly. When you called me the old woman, and told him Chloe could forge my signature. And at last, the mask shattered completely. Chloe slammed her hand on the table. Fine. Yes. We planned it all. You were never supposed to find out. But it doesn't matter, Eleanor. Because in the end, you'll sign these papers one way or another. Caleb's voice turned venomous. And if you don't, we'll get a doctor to declare you mentally unfit. We have contacts. With the right papers, you'll be locked away while we sell this house. They thought they had won. They thought they had broken me. But as their confessions spilled from their lips, I reached beneath my blouse and placed a tiny microphone on the table. Its red light blinked softly. Both of them froze. Actually, I said, my voice calm, almost gentle, I don't need to sign anything. Because I already have everything I need. The front door opened. My lawyer stepped inside, followed by the private investigator and two uniformed officers. Caleb's face turned to stone. Chloe backed away, panic flooding her eyes. The detective's voice was firm, official. Caleb Vega. Chloe Herrera. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted document forgery, and financial abuse of an elder. I watched as the color drained from Caleb's face, the son I had once cradled now shackled by his own greed. This is impossible, he whispered. You have no proof. I placed the microphone gently next to the forged documents. On the contrary, I said. I have everything. For the first time in weeks, I felt power return to me, not as a weapon, but as justice. The war they started had ended. And they had already lost. The house was quiet again. For the first time in weeks, there was no whispering behind doors, no forced kindness at the breakfast table, no threat lurking in every corner. Caleb and Chloe were gone, escorted out in handcuffs, their voices fading down the hallway, replaced by the heavy silence of a home that had been both my sanctuary and my prison. I stood alone in the dining room, staring at the stack of fraudulent documents still lying on the table. Just hours earlier, those papers had been my death sentence. Now they were evidence, proof of a crime that could have destroyed me. The lawyer's words echoed in my ears. Mrs. Vega, you have everything we need. Their own confessions, the recordings, the medical report. They won't walk away from this. I should have felt relief. Victory. But instead, a deeper weight settled on me. Because while the law would punish Caleb and Chloe, nothing could erase the truth. My son, the boy I raised with my own hands, had chosen greed over love. I walked to the window and looked out at the garden. The same garden where I once taught Caleb to ride his bike. Where I patched his knees after he fell. Where I dreamed I would one day watch my grandchildren play. Now it was just grass and shadows, haunted by memories of a child who no longer existed. For 35 years, I worked myself to the bone. I gave up love. I gave up companionship. I gave up myself so Caleb could have everything. And in the end, he looked at me not as his mother, but as an obstacle. Tears blurred my vision, but they didn't fall. I had cried enough. Instead, a strange calm washed over me. Because through this nightmare, I had discovered something I had forgotten, my strength. For too long, I had let others control me, believing my age made me fragile, believing kindness required silence. But I was wrong. Age does not weaken us. It sharpens us. It arms us with the weapon of experience. And when survival demands it, that weapon is sharper than any blade. The world will see Caleb and Chloe as criminals. But to me, they will always be more than that. They will be the reminder that love, no matter how deep, can be poisoned by greed. Yet even in betrayal, I found something precious. Myself. I am Eleanor Vega. I am not a senile old woman. I am not paranoid. I am not broken. I am a survivor. And though my home stands quieter than ever, it is still mine. Not as loot for others to steal, but as a fortress where I reclaimed my dignity. The future will not be easy. Loneliness has sharp edges, and betrayal leaves scars that never truly fade. But as I closed the curtains that evening, I whispered to the empty room. You tried to erase me. But I am still here. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it.